some of the ways that his Pokemon are trained to be a little bit different than what players might normally expect. But definitely, I think sticking to a team that's relatively safe, one that has Pokemon that are established to do very well in this format, and Yuri on the other end is running Rillaboom and Cinderace. I just want them to come out so badly, because I think even as soon as those Pokemon were released just a couple of weeks ago, people said, there's a lot of potential, but this is the first tournament where we actually get to see those Pokemon with their hidden abilities in action, and I think that's just going to be super exciting. Whether they do well or not, it gives us a taste of their potential, and so I am excited to see how Yuri pilots it, and I'm excited to see how Ashton is really able to counteract them, because he might not be very familiar going up against these Pokemon. They're because they were released so soon before the Players' Cup Invitational, I would be willing to say that, players don't have very much practice either using or playing against things like Cinderace and Rillaboom. So I think it's going to be a fun show for sure.
Definitely going to be a fun one. And let's get the action started between Ashton and Yuri. We are going to get a chance to see those hidden ability Pokemon in action. And in particular, when we take a look at Yuri's side of the field, we're seeing Cinderace paired up against Bisharp versus Togekiss and Dragapult coming in from Ashton.
So I really like the Cinderace Bisharp lead and the combination on Yuri's team. It puts on so much offensive pressure because of the threat of so many different attacks on Cinderace. Cinderace is a Pokemon that has like 7 to 8 viable attacks, and of course with Libero it's able to do even more damage by changing its type. So right now, Ashton's Dragapult definitely threatened by the Bisharp. Togekiss also threatened by the Bisharp. So if Togekiss doesn't have Protect, and you see here it doesn't, then you're either forced to maybe take an Iron Head, or you have to consider a switch out. Dragapult here also is kind of in an awkward spot, because if you Dynamax it and just go for Max Phantasm or Max Wormwind, you're going to give Bisharp Defiant boosts, and you really don't want to give Bisharp too many boosts, because if you do, then a Sucker Punch might just be able to one-hit KO even Dynamax Dragapult. So that's definitely something that Ashton has to watch out for. Yuri right now can have a lot of early momentum with this lead. He has a bunch of different plays, such as maxing the Cinderace and then going for Airstream or even a Knuckle. The Bisharp here can potentially go for a Sucker Punch or an Iron Head.
Yeah, well, you talk about Defiant boosts, and here's one on the field as Ashton decides to switch out their Togekiss in favor of Incineroar. With that Intimidate, it's going to end up increasing the attack for that Bisharp, as we will also see Yuri go ahead and increase the size of the Cinderace as it makes its debut on the field in its Dynamax Factor form. Super excited to see what the Cinderace is going to be able to do, especially because it does have that hidden ability, and we will get a chance to see that in action. First off, as it uses Max Knuckle, changing its type to Fighting, getting a chance to see that ability in action, as we do see this Incineroar take that Max Knuckle right to the face. Let's see how Yuri decides to follow that up, as now we're going to see this Bisharp with not 1, but 2 attack boosts, and that's going to be a lot of damage heading Ashton's way. But Ashton's going to be able to get a boost off of their own, with Dragapult going for a Dragon Dance, so attack and speed both going to rise for this Dragapult, as Bisharp is able to deal the final blow to Incineroar with an Iron Head at +2, so Incineroar going to get knocked out here.
Yeah, that was a lot of action on the first turn, so a couple of key points to note. First of all, Yuri actually going for the Max Knuckle into the Togekiss might seem like a weird play, but it's actually a really smart and safe play, because it covers for any switch out. If the Togekiss stays in, you give Bisharp the attack boost, and then Bisharp should KO the Togekiss afterwards. And if you switch out, as Ashton ended up doing, then you'll get a Knuckle and an Iron Head into anything. I was even able to pick up the KO onto Incineroar, which is one of the bulkier Pokemon in the format. So really nice play by Yuri to get some early momentum. Some big reveals there as well. We actually saw the Cinderace go before the Dragapult, so this indicates that the Dragapult is not like the jolly max speed kind of sets that you often see people train their Dragapults to be. It's a little bit bulkier, and because of that bulk, I'm willing to bet that it potentially can even survive a +2 Sucker Punch. So now Bisharp is boosted, puts on a lot of offensive pressure against both Dragapult and Togekiss with its super effective attacks, but Dragapult, of course, now did get that Dragon Dance off, and because Cinderace didn't opt for something like a Max Airstream, Dragapult can just go for a Max Airstream of its own onto the Cinderace slot, and because Cinderace has changed its typing to Fighting type through Libero, might just be enough to pick up the KO onto it. So Ashton ends up getting a Dragon Dance off relatively free. Dragapult now, of course, can consider Dynamaxing. I think it really should Dynamax here, and you really need to start doing damage. The big question is, how do you deal with Cinderace plus Bisharp? Because this Bisharp still is boosted, able to do a lot of damage. Big question here is whether Ashton goes for, follow me, and whether Yuri predicts him to go for follow me and not Sucker Punch, or expects to follow me and just goes for an Iron Head. Of course, Yuri might also realize, hey, maybe I don't KO the Dragon Bolt even with the 2 stages of increased attack.
A lot of different options to have to consider from both of these players' perspectives, and I think this turn's going to end up being a very critical one for the rest of this game, as Dragon Ball goes for a max airstream right into the Cinderace that is going to be fighting type due to that ability, and that's a knockout. Oh my goodness. Dynamax no longer going to be a factor for the rest of Yuri's game 1.
Yeah, that is one of the downsides of Cinderace as well. When you change your typing, other Pokemon can take advantage of it and use attacks that won't normally be super effective against it. Big Dazzling Gleam coming off from the Togekiss, so no follow me in the end, and oh my goodness, It does almost enough to just one-hit KO Bisharp with a critical hit.
Yeah, the critical hit is huge, but here's some bigger damage. The Iron Head from Bisharp at +2, definitely going to be enough to knock out this Togekiss. So trades coming across the board for both Ashton and Yuri, but what Pokemon are we going to see next?
Yeah, what a fast-paced game so far. It's been 2 turns, and 3 Pokemon have been KO'd already. Yuri already lost his Dynamax as well, so while it looked like the lead favored Yuri, I think the fact that Ashton was able to get a Dragon Dance for free and then just KO Cinderace, which didn't end up going for something like a max card, allows Ashton to actually gain a lot of momentum now, because now he has a Dragapult at +1 attack and +1 speed. He's able to do a lot of damage. That the Bisharp is also taking a lot of damage, enough to the point where any attack should just KO it, even through Protect. So Dragapult right now putting on a lot of pressure, and to me, the biggest question is, can this Dragapult KO the Bisharp KO the Dragapult with the +2 Sucker Punch? Because this Dragapult is slower, indicates that it's going to be a little bit bulkier. We saw the weakness policy item on it as well, so I think there's a chance that it can survive a Sucker Punch, and from Yuri's end, you have to make the decision, do you just go for a Sucker Punch, hope to KO? Even if you Sucker Punch, you have to worry about a potential max guard from the Dragapult, so if you're worried about that, potentially you go for a Protect of your own onto Bisharp, or even switch the Bisharp out. Either way, despite Yuri having a lot of momentum out that first turn, now Ashton, given that he has conserved his Dynamax and he's KO'd Yuri's Dynamax, is actually in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, especially because Ashton has the ability to go for yet another max airstream if they so choose, and just continue to build up the speed. Bisharp is going to take a step back from this game, though, as Rillaboom now comes out for Yuri. It's going to set the grassy terrain here with Rillaboom's Grassy Surge ability, which is super exciting to also see hit the field for this game, as max airstream goes right into the slot. Oh my goodness! Ashton takes another knockout.
Wow, it's a relatively safe play there. There's no reason to be going for Max Wormwind, and sometimes it maybe does a little bit more to the Togekiss, but you also guarantee the speed boost onto the Excadrill. Ends up working out perfectly there for Ashton, though. Not only does he pick up the KO, and you get this free Iron Head into the Togekiss as well. The Beery being revealed there on the Togekiss, meaning it's not as offensive as other Togekiss players might expect. And the flinch!
Flinch! What? That is a huge turn for Ashton, not only getting the knockout onto Rillaboom, but also the flinch onto Togekiss. Wow, Bisharp and Togekiss, the last 2 Pokemon left here for Yuri. And Bisharp's already so low and lost its attack boosts.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Right now, it doesn't even pressure Dragapult with the KO with Sucker Punch whatsoever, so Ashton doesn't even need to worry about going for something like a max guard, as yeah, I think that last turn, I'm curious what Yuri's game plan was there, because even if you get the Rillaboom safely, like, Dragapult just feels super good. I guess what he was going for was to hopefully stall out the Dynamax and then maybe just get a Sucker Punch KO onto the Dragapult. But nice play by Ashton there. It was a pretty safe play as well. Flinch makes it really, really difficult to really have a shot at winning this anymore. And despite the Protect, yeah, Phantasm just goes through and picks up the KO.
And the Iron Head as well to get the knockout onto Togekiss. Ashton takes a very clean game 1.
Yeah, that was
wow.
A very quick game 1 as well, right? I think like the nature of these teams results in really fast games, because when you're using Pokemon like Cinderace and Bisharp, like, they're often not sticking on the field for very long, and either they're picking up enough KOs where the game is over, or they just get KO'd and then you can't really do much afterwards, because so much of that heavy offense relies on that core. So I think the main thing that was a really big deal in this game was, first of all, no Sucker Punch ever coming out from that Bisharp. I think, like, Yuri wanted to play safe. He was worried about the threat of Follow Me or Max Guard, and Ashton played really aggressively, said, I'm not going to worry about your Sucker Punch, maybe because he knows his Dragapult is trained to potentially survive, like, a +3 Sucker Punch, or might be, for example, a damage roll. But at the end of the day, no Sucker Punch ends up coming out, and Ashton gets the better end of it by just doing consistent damage with this mode. But I think it's still scary because it's not like that game plan is super safe, right? Like, Ashton had to make a bunch of good calls back to back in terms of playing around it. And I think now Yuri also recognizes, oh, he has Dragon Dance. I'm actually faster than the Dragapult naturally. So what Yuri might consider doing, should he lead with the same thing in game 2, is potentially just going for max airstreams instead. By max airstreaming, you don't turning yourself into fighting type, which means you don't get KO'd by the Dragapult. It also means even if Dragapult goes for that first Dragon Dance, you will still outspeed it in subsequent turns, as long as it's not going for an airstream while you're just going for a regular attack.
Yeah, I would also kind of be interested to see how that affects Bisharp as well, since when you use that max move, it also gives that secondary effect of the max move to the partner on the field. So based on how Dragapult might be trained, Bisharp might also be faster than Dragapult if Dragapult doesn't go for a max airstream.
Yeah, and I think Bisharp actually on paper looks really good against Ashton's team because, like, there's the Togekiss, and Togekiss really takes so much damage from Iron Head. There's Dragapult, and Dragapult, like, regular Bisharp has a pretty good matchup against Dragapult. Incineroar, while is able to resist the Steel and the Dark type attacks, as we saw, still has to activate the Defiant boost, and it's tricky because I feel like Ashton feels the need to bring in Incineroar, because otherwise, how in the world do you even deal with Cinderace? It can just, without Intimidate, get so many KOs so quickly. I think another question to figure out here is the full moveset on the Cinderace, right? You can run things like Bullet Punch for Max Steel Spike, you can run Gunk Shot, Iron Head for Steel Spike, you can run Gunk Shot for Max Ooze. Now, Max Ooze is obviously not very good with Cinderace, but Gunk Shot itself does a lot of damage to Togekiss, so another option in terms of offense. Cinderace has, like, 7, 8 different good attacks of different types, so you always have to play, like, the guessing game too, and I think, like, the information management and figuring out what the moveset is early is really important as well. So Ashton got a little bit of information there. I mean, the only thing he saw was Max Knuckle, and that's kind of a standard on Cinderace, so probably not, like, as much information as he'd like to get. But I think Cinderace outspeeding Dragapult's a really big deal, so I expect Yuri to kind of go with the same combo, just maybe go for a Max Extreme instead of Knuckle this time.
Yeah, I think the lead is very safe, and you can kind of feel the pressure of the Bisharp just in Team Preview, right? With that Defiant ability, you can't really safely bring in Incineroar unless you just feel comfortable giving the boost to Bisharp and knowing that you will be able to mitigate the damage coming out from Cinderace. So interesting to see how Ashton's really going to play around that, but same leads from Yuri, and we're going to see Dragapult and Togekiss from Ashton. Yeah,
so no adjustments here. I think it makes sense from Ashton's end, right? You're like, okay, I won that game with this lead. Why not try it again? And I think on Yuri's end, Yuri's like, I didn't play aggressively enough with Sucker Punch. I switched out Bisharp at the end. I feel like I have the tools to win this. And I think this time around, he might think twice about going for that Max Knuckle. He has to respect the Dragon Dance a little bit more. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Cinderace go for maybe a Max Airstream this time around. Of course, the other thing is, if you just Max Knuckle here, because you're actually faster than the Dragapult, you have to also worry about Dragapult just Dynamaxing and Max Airstreaming, which is the play that Ashton is going for this turn. So I think really heads up play on Yuri's end would be to just go for anything but Max Knuckle this time around, especially because, I think one thing you want to figure out is the speed interaction between the Togekiss and Bisharp as well. But I do think Cinderace being faster than Dragapult is a really big deal here, because it means you just get a big attack off, and you can change your type to adjust for what you think Dragapult's going to go for.
Right, that's going to be huge. That's kind of the mind game that you have to play with that hidden ability on Cinderace, right? Is what type am I going to be? What moveset am I running? And so many other factors that have to play a role in this game. But Cinderace, we saw that it was able to Dynamax first, so it's going to be able to get this Max Airstream off first as well. So here's the adjustment being made. Goes right into the Togekiss, dealing a good chunk of damage, but I think most importantly, we're also seeing that Bisharp gets the speed boost too.
Yeah, so let's see if it is faster. It is faster than that Dragapult, as you mentioned. So that's a really big deal in this matchup as well, right? That was a really safe play from Yuri's end. That's exactly the adjustment I wanted to see him make. And the Dragapult, of course, will get the Max Airstream off in return, but now doesn't do nearly as much damage. No Dragon Dance boost and no super effective attack. And that was a critical hit as well.
Wow.
When you don't run Life Orb on Dragon, when you run Weakness Policy instead, you just, obviously give up a huge amount of damage. And so I think a great play on Yuri's end. I think Ashton going for the direct Dynamax this time instead of the Dragon Dance, saying, okay, if you turn yourself into Fighting type, I get a super effective attack off. Even if you don't, I'll get that speed boost. But I think this is where using the slower, bulky Dragapult with Weakness Policy kind of makes things a little awkward for Ashton, right? The fact that Cinderace gets to always get these Airstreams off first means that the Bisharp also outspeeds, and so, sure, you bring out the Incineroar, you get the attack drop onto the Cinderace, but once again, you're giving a Defiant boost to the Bisharp, which still has not taken any damage. Cinderace can't even get faked out, so you can always go for a free max Airstream with that slot. So this is a really tricky position for Ashton to be in, and I think it's just a combo of Cinderace and Bisharp that exerts so much offensive pressure right now from Yuri's end. And he recognizes if I'm able to outspeed the Dragapult naturally, I can just go for Airstreams to make sure that I consistently outspeed the Dragapult.
Right, I think this gives Yuri one fast track that they'll be able to roll down in order to take this game, but will Ashton be able to adjust and respond as necessary in order to keep themselves in this one? Incineroar goes for a fake out onto the Bisharp, so it's not going to be threatening any sort of Sucker Punch this turn, as Cinderace goes for yet another max Airstream, this time into the Dragapult, and dealing a good chunk of damage there. Another speed boost given to itself, and another speed boost given to its partner Bisharp, as Cinderace does take some of that Life Orb recoil. Dragapult fires back with a max Airstream of their own into the Bisharp, but that does very little.
That is not the damage you really want to be doing in this position in the game. I think Ashton recognizes Bisharp is the threat, so I have to do damage to it, but now Yuri is in a immensely commanding position. He not only has the speed boost still on Bisharp, so, still outpacing, the Cinderace now is still outpacing the Dragapult. Cinderace can just go for a third max Airstream and go for a KO, so now Ashton has to ask himself, okay, maybe the play you make is you max guard with a Dragapult and you go for a Flare Blitz to just KO the Bisharp, hope that the Incineroar does not get KO'd. Alternatively, maybe you read into that, you read Yuri basically doubling up onto the Incineroar, maybe you just go for an attack with Dragapult. But either way, I think because of these Airstreams and Cinderace being able to just consistently outpace, puts him in a really good spot. And the really tough thing is that I don't think Dragapult can knock out the Bisharp with any of its attacks because it's just not very offensive.
No, and I think it's going to also take the choice to just sit back and relax for this one, as we are going to see another Max Knuckle from the Cinderace, knowing that it's going to be super fast, going right into the Incineroar. My goodness, dealing a huge amount of damage with that super effectiveness. It's going to raise the attack of the Cinderace and also put Bisharp at +2 from the Defiant boost from the Intimidate as well as the Max Knuckle boost. So in Iron Head, definitely going to knock out, even though it's not super effective.
Yeah, fantastic play there from Yuri. Dragapult ends up protecting, and I think Yuri recognizes, okay, even if you don't protect, what in the world are you going to do? If you Warm Wind or Phantasm, you're not KOing Bisharp because I resist those, and you give me the Defiant boost. And in that position, Incineroars very rarely carry Protect, so for Yuri's end, it's a free way to just get a knockout and pays off even better because Ashton does end up committing that Max Guard. So I think this just goes to show how good Bisharp is, and even though it's not Dynamax, so it's actually better in non-max form against this Dragapult, while Cinderace is able to give it speed boost. So now the Excadrill comes out, sure, it's able to put on some pressure with Earthquakes, but because Cinderace has been going through these speed boosts, both Cinderace and Bisharp will just outspeed the Excadrill.
Yeah, here's the Pyro Ball moving first because of how fast Cinderace is going to be on the field. Pyro Ball going to target down the Excadrill, which is going to bring it down to its Focus Sash.
Yeah, so Focus Sash,
Excadrill, holding on.
And Dragon Dance comes out as a way to bypass the Sucker Punch, but I think Yuri recognizing, okay, well, you're not gonna ever outspeed me with Excadrill because I have the speed boosts, and what is Dragapult even gonna do in this position? Dragon Darts, right? Phantom Force, Fly, none of those are really doing any damage, so safely doubles up onto the Excadrill. I think maybe Ashton had a chance there if he protected the Excadrill, but this is gonna be, I think, a clean sweep from Yuri's end.
Yeah, this is definitely a difficult position for Ashton to be in. Even though the Dragon Dance came off and you're getting a speed boost there, that's not going to be enough, especially with maybe how fast this Bisharp has gotten a chance to really get up to. So, what do you do if you're Ashton? I think you just have to think about what you have to do in the next game in order to bring it back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it all comes down to that first turn. The fact that Cinderace is able to consistently outpace the Dragapult and not get KO'd completely turned the tides of this game, because if you look at it, Ashton's team just really has nothing for the combination of Cinderace and Bisharp. You have Excadrill and Rotom, maybe, but those don't even feel that good, especially because we saw the Assurance reveal on the Bisharp as well. So even something like Rotom on paper looks good against Cinderace, but Cinderace can get around the Rotom by just Dynamaxing, going for a non-fire type attack, and then through Libero you change your type so that you don't faint from like a Max Geyser from the Rotom. So this is one of the reasons why I think a lot of players thought Cinderace would be really good. Not only do you do so much damage through Libero, changing yourself and changing your type, but the fact that you're also able to change your type kind of as a defensive mechanic to bypass super effective attacks, I think is super interesting as well. So I think, from Yuri's end, going with the same lead makes a lot of sense to me. He didn't even reveal his back Pokemon in that, and like his just the Cinderace and the Bisharp alone were able to do so much. And it's not like he was making any advanced predictions that game. He was always making pretty much a safe play, but the thing is that lead allows for so many safe plays that often allows you to just pick up a KO with little risk. And the problem is that Dragapult in max form still does not very much damage against the Bisharp.
Yeah, we noticed that. We were able to see firsthand how Dragapult, even in its Dynamax form, just does nothing. It really allows Bisharp to survive and get those boosts, not only in attack, but speed. And you can see firsthand how powerful that can really be all the way through to the endgame with Bisharp.
Yeah, and I think to throw it into like going into this third game, I'm not sure leading Togekiss is the answer anymore, because what Ashton is often doing is just switching it out, and the pressure of Cinderace plus Bisharp means that Togekiss is never getting really a free attack. If that Protect, then maybe you could bait an attack out, but the fact that Dragapult and Togekiss and Cinnamoroar all don't have Protect means that you're pretty much always taking guaranteed damage on one of those Pokemon at any given point, right? So I think maybe a different lead would give Ashton more of a chance, because I just don't think the Togekiss Dragapult lead cuts it anymore when you see the max Airstream from the Cinderace being able to outpace. Excadrill is an interesting option, right? Because it has that Focus Sash, so it can at least take a max move from the Cinderace and maybe retaliate with in return. But it's still tough. Like, if you want Excadrill, you normally maybe want it out next to something like Togekiss. You could go Excadrill Dragapult, where you max Airstream, and then, Excadrill keeps up with the Bisharp. But the main problem, I think, is that the max Airstream speed boosts are always helping Bisharp, and then the Bisharp just outpaces Ashton's entire team. So I think that specific interaction of Dragapult being slower makes this really tricky for Ashton.
Yeah, usually we do get a chance to see Dragapult trained max in speed, so that's going to be really interesting kind of to see how this is going to play out again, as Yuri, otherwise known as Alessio, is going to lead with the same leads of Cinderace and Bisharp, but we're seeing a switch up here from Ashton. That's going to be Excadrill and Rotom Wash.
Yeah, I like this mix-up a lot. I think Ashton recognizes there's no way I'm going to be able to win with Max Dragapult into a Cinderace that outspeeds me and a Bisharp, which, as we saw, does do no damage against. And Togekiss Dragapult is just so weak, so at least right now what Rotom and Excadrill is able to do is that it exerts a lot of offensive pressure. And like I mentioned, the Excadrill does have the Focus Sash, so it can at least survive an attack from the Cinderace. That being said, it's still pretty tricky, right? Who do you Dynamax here? Because you still faint potentially to something like a Sucker Punch and just a Max Flare into the Excadrill slot. So this is the main thing about Cinderace Bisharp. If they call it correctly on turn 1, it is so easy to just snowball that so quickly, which is exactly what happened in that last game. But I do think this is a good adjustment by Ashton. I don't think what he was bringing previously was going to cut it.
Ooh, well, we are going to see the Dynamax once again. An early start for Yuri with the Cinderace. We'll see if Ashton actually decides to match that with Dynamax pressure of their own, and that they are. So we will see this Excadrill take the Dynamax factor and try to match some of that amount of damage coming out from Cinderace this turn. But how does Yuri call this? That's the question that you asked, and that's the question that we want an answer to, because you're right. Yuri's able to develop a lot of momentum if they get this read right. Cinderace goes for a Max Strike, though, changing its type to normal, and that Max Strike is going to go right into the Rotom, doing, oh my gosh, bringing it down so low, almost a one-hit knockout.
Wow, Max Strike is a big reveal there. Probably coming off Giga Impact, which you don't see very often on Cinderaces, but that's another great means of speed control. Now you lower the road time and Excadrill speed, meaning that Bisharp will get an attack off, probably Assurance into the road time, and exactly it is that. And yeah, now with the normal type as well, for example, a Max Quick won't even KO the Bisharp, so very interesting play. The big reveal there with Max Strike, and Max Quick comes out, but yeah, not able to KO the Bisharp with the Focus Sash, so Yuri doesn't end up doubling up into the Excadrill, but still ends up working out alright, as he is able to knock out Rotom cleanly, and now has Max Cinderace against Max Excadrill.
I feel like in that situation, Yuri also has a lot of confidence knowing that Bisharp can hold on with the Focus Sash, right? So exactly. Why look at Excadrill as a threat when you can just knock out its partner, which kind of threatens a little bit more, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because, like, you know, Dynamax Cinderace is really threatening, but at the end of the day, I think that's a really good point. The fact is that Yuri, with the Cinderace Bisharp lead, has always been able to go for plays that are relatively safe. You know, the only way that doesn't work out is if Rotom protects, and yeah, if it does, then, you know, Yuri still gets some speed control. So he's been able to call the first turn correctly, and he's finding plays that are relatively safe that are getting him up a huge amount. The Incineroar here, of course, gets the Intimidated against the against the Cinderace. So the question is, does the Excadrill, or sorry, does the Protect come out from the Bisharp? But no Protect comes out. It's actually just going to be a Max Knuckle.
Ooh, but that was a smart call from Ashton, because that's not going to affect the Dragon Ball, but an Assurance comes out, and that's a one-hit knockout. Wow.
Picks up the one-hit KO, makes the hard call. Yuri decides not to Protect from a potential fake out, and it pays off brilliantly for him. He doesn't get the Knuckle off, but instead gets a Assurance, which just picks up the KO. And once again, you know, that's a pretty safe play. If the Incineroar stays in and goes for a Fake Out, then you get the Max Knuckle off with the Cinderace. If it doesn't go for Fake Out and you switch out, then what happened just now is exactly what happens, right? So I think Yuri is just able to find really safe plays consistently with this duel, which has been really impressive. Of course, now we do finally see what Yuri has in the back. It is going to be that Dusclops, so you know, Yuri has a Primarina on his team. If his last one is Primarina, then I think he has a pretty safe endgame here of just setting up Trick Room and bringing in the Primarina.
Oh, interesting reveal from Ashton's Incineroar, too. I know we've been able to see this a couple of times on screen, but safety goggles getting confirmed for that Incineroar. So this is another one of those unique options that Ashton has decided to bring onto their team. But with Incineroar and Excadrill left, and Cinderace going for a Max Knuckle, man, that's going to hurt. That's definitely going to hurt for Ashton's side of the field.
Yeah, a lot of Intimidate drops, but the Cinderace is able to counteract that by going for attack increases of its own, able to do a hefty amount. And, you know, that's the really nice thing about Cinderace. If this wasn't Libero, it would just faint to a Max Quake, but because of Libero, it's able to change its typing and survive on the field for an extra turn. I think that's a really big deal, because the main thing about the last two games is that Cinderace is stuck on the field for every turn, as the taunt reveal comes out from the Incineroar. So, not a move that every Incineroar carries, and that might come up huge, but Yuri correctly does not go for the Trick Room here, saying, I don't actually need Trick Room to win this game. Even if Primarina is his last one, he doesn't want to set up Trick Room while having Cinderace out on the field, so gets even more damage onto the Incineroar, putting Yuri in a really commanding position now, I think. It's very difficult for Excadrill. It's near impossible for Excadrill to win 1v1 against the Dusclops, especially if it has Pain Split. And since Incineroars don't really carry Protect, Cinderace can pretty freely target that slot for a KO.
Well, Cinderace goes for the Pyro Ball, trying to at least bring Excadrill into a knockout range, which it is going to bring it very low. Is this going to be enough? Let's see what Excadrill decides to do. Goes for the Swords Dance. So how does Yuri's Dusclops respond to what Ashton has decided to do for this turn, as Incineroar does fire back with a Flare Blitz into Cinderace, getting the knockout, but I feel like Cinderace's job has already been accomplished in this game, much like Bisharp's after it had gone down. So Dusclops does go for the Nightshade, and onto either Pokemon will be able to pick up the knockout, and here's the situation that you talked about, Excadrill versus Dusclops and Yuri's final Pokemon.
Yeah, with one more Pokemon in the back, Ashton's going to need, I think, a bunch of critical hits at this point, as Primarina is that last one, so really nicely conserved on Yuri's end. Excadrill will faint to a Nightshade at this point, And so, yeah, it's a question of whether... I don't even think an Earthquake critical hit knocks out the Dusclops, so I think this game should be Yuri's. We'll have to see. But I'm pretty sure Primarina can survive an Earthquake at this point as well, so you maybe need a double critical hit to even have a chance. Either way, though, I think Swords Dance was at least the one play that keeps your Ashton in this game. If you just went for an attack last game, or last turn, pretty much no way to KO the Primarina this turn. So, yeah, you know, Yuri's basically been making, like, these really safe plays, but it's worked out because it feels like his team just has a better matchup here. Earthquake comes out. Are there any crits? Ooh, it does KO Primarina, but... oh, it doesn't!
Oh my gosh, it doesn't! Primarina's able to hang on through the Earthquake, able to consume its Citrus Berry, and Primarina able to deal the final blow to Excadrill with the Hyper Voice, and Yuri comes back with the reverse sweep on Ashton.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the Dusclops wasn't fainting to a critical hit Earthquake anyway, so that game was effectively Yuri's. But a really fun set, ultimately, and I think Yuri just had a good matchup, and he also made safe plays that were